Hello, welcome to another lecture video presented by RPI UPE. My name is Benno and today I'll be providing a quick introduction for transitioning from Python to C++. First, I'd like to ask you all to take a minute and download and install Cygwin if you don't already have it installed on your machine, as we will be using it later in the video. Just follow the link in the description below. Now let's talk quickly about a concept called scope. Scope in Python is indicated by indentation and establishes borders around blocks of code. Think of it like borders around states and nations. States won't follow the laws of other states, and if it doesn't have a law to handle something, it can just use federal laws. Now back to code. In C++, scope is indicated by curly braces, and that's going to be our first step in this whole process of transitioning. Now let's take a simple program like Hello World in Python and slowly translate it into C++. Since the print command isn't indented, it's in what we call the global scope. Let's put curly braces around it, and notice that since curly braces now define scope, we don't have to put tabs into our code, but continue to do so as it keeps your code readable. Now the problem is that in C++ we cannot write commands in the global scope. So how do we execute commands? Well, what C++ does is automatically call a function called main when it begins running a program, which means that all programs must have a main function. So let's add that in. Bam. As you can see, the function definitions are very similar to the Python syntax. The int before main simply indicates that the function will return an integer. And as you may have noticed, we add a return statement after printing. 0 just indicates that there was no error. Don't worry about it for now. We will be going over functions in a later video. Now notice how I don't have curly braces around the main function. In truth, I don't need to indicate global scope. Now unlike Python, C++ does not have built-in output support. So what do you do in Python when the language doesn't support something? You import a library that does. Except in C++, we use the keyword #include with angle brackets surrounding the library we want to include. So let's include iostream, the C++ input-output library. Bam. So cout is called the output stream, and it will print anything that is sent to it with the output operator, the two less than signs. Cout isn't as smart as print in Python, unfortunately, but we'll discuss that more in a later video. Since iostream is part of what's called the standard library, we have to put the std : before cout to tell the program where cout is defined. Also notice that semicolons have been added to the end of each statement. All statements in C++ end in a semicolon. Don't forget them. Now it's a little hard to see, but there is actually an empty line at the end of the file, and that's just a little peculiarity in C and C++. You can actually now compile this code and it will run and print Hello World. But there are actually a few small changes we can make to improve the code before we do so. One important thing to know is that cout doesn't automatically print a new line after it writes to the screen. We could put a \n at the end of the string, but C++ has a convenient object in iostream that we can send into the input called std:\endl, which outputs a new line. It can also be annoying having to repeatedly type std::. So if right before we include our libraries, we type the statement using namespace std, we can leave out the stds in our code. So now our code should look like this. Notice the using namespace std and the missing std::. Alright, it's important to note that when you save your code, the extension should be .cpp or .cc instead of py. Alright, now comes the part where you need Cygwin, so start it up. If you don't know how to use it, the important things you need to know right now are two commands, ls and cd. ls lists all the files and directories in the current directory, and CD goes into the directory name. If you go into the wrong folder, you can go up one level by executing cd space ... To put your files into where Cygwin can see it, open Windows Explorer and navigate to your C drive Cygwin/home/username. Put your files in there and then organize it however you wish. Now navigate to the folder your code is in and type in G++ space and your C++ file. CPP. And then press enter. If nothing bad happened, you should just get a new input line in Cygwin. Now enter ls, and you should see a new file in your directory called a.exe. In Linux and Mac, it will be a.out. This is your program. To execute it, type /a.exe and enter, and it should run. Congratulations! You just translated your first Python concept into C++. In our next video, we'll go into taking in input, data types, if statements, and loops. So stay tuned and subscribe to our channel. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like this video. See you next time.